How's it going, everybody? And another week, another episode of Encouragement Conquers All. And if you're ready to be encouraged, I can promise you, you will be encouraged with our guest today. It will be a gift. But remember, in your journals or wherever you're writing down, what's about is designing a plan for your life. Encouragement is, do you have a plan? I was just talking to my son this week, and I said, hey, what's your schedule for tomorrow? And he goes, Dad, I don't know. I go, well, that's the problem. Look, you might not be you might not be able to do a year at a time. You might not be able to do a month at a time yet. You know, he's 18, so his frontal lobe's still working out. You know, he's figuring that out. But he did say after we talked, he goes, Dad, I'll put a schedule together tomorrow. I feel so much better. And I have that schedule that can help me. And I can see his spirit change. You see, it's not that your plan will work out perfectly, but that when you design a plan one day at a time, a week at a time, a month at a time, a quarter at a time, a year at a time, you don't got to go further than a year, all right? Make sure to really structure it. I promise you, designing a plan, that's encouragement. Encouragement, when you intentionally care about the people you meet, what you're doing, how you're living, it matters. And today we are on Encouragement Conquers All, and we have an unbelievable guest. He actually was a basketball player for UCLA. Yeah, he probably knows the history of John Wooden better than I do, who's one of my favorite coaches of all time. He also has persevered and has had many achievements in the basketball world. One of his greatest achievements he'll talk about is, winning his wife's heart. That's for sure. That's one of his greatest achievements. But today we're honored to have Jason Flowers, the head men's basketball coach at Los Angeles City College JUCO team. I'm excited to have you on, Jason. Thanks for jumping on.
I'm just as excited on being here. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, definitely. And, talk about your history. So you went to UCLA, from UC Irvine, right? You played?
Yeah, it's the journey is an interesting one. I grew up in a single parent environment. Had a single mom, grew up in Watts. Sports were my they were everything to me, back then. And I was fortunate enough to play for several men who became father figures for me and helped me grow in so many ways, all the way up through high school. And so graduated high school. I was 16 years old. I was a scrawny 5'10", 140-pound kid. I was accepted to UCLA out of high school. UCLA was the dream school. They were a year away from winning the national championship in 95. I graduated in 96. For your young viewers, they're going to be like, man, wow, this dude is really old. And so, I tried to walk on to UCLA, didn't make the team, got cut, ended up going to UC Irvine. I'll give you the short version of it. Went to Irvine.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah.
You have resiliency.
Oh man, it was
Watts must have taught you that.
You know what? As they say, Watts don't raise no punks. So and so I went to UC Irvine as a walk-on. UC Irvine literally was the worst team in Division I basketball the year before. They had only won one game. There was a coaching change. My high school coach recommended that I go try to walk on. I thought he was crazy. I'm not trying to be a walk-on the worst team in America. And so I end up going. I earned a scholarship my sophomore year, and then I end up leaving. And I went to actually play for one of an assistant coach who had been at Irvine. He had played at UCLA. His name is Cameron Dollar. And so I'm leaving Irvine to go play for him. He was a head coach at an NAIA school out here in Southern California. And after I've, made my decision, I've told the coaches at Irvine that I'm leaving. A couple months later, he calls and he's like, "Oh, I'm leaving and I'm going, I'm going here." And so it was a great opportunity for him. It was closer to home. It made complete sense. So that he's my number one mentor to this day. And so man, it ended up working out and he helped out a lot. And I was able to go back to UCLA and walk on.
That's an unbelievable story.
It's crazy. That's the short version.
I want to hear it. I want to hear the full version again, because you know how many kids that I've worked with as a coach, through AAU that are like, your story is what they desire their story to be, that they
Yeah.
can work through the ranks and get to that top-notch team. Did you
Yeah.
enjoy UCLA?
Best decision of my life up until that point. Obviously, like you said, I met my wife at UCLA. She was a softball player there. Became an Olympian. So prior to marrying my wife or asking my wife to marry me, it was the greatest decision I had made in my life up until then. It's still to this day. I reap benefits. My family reaps benefits. Obviously with UCLA leaving the Pac-12 and going to the Big Ten, there was a big reunion for the last home game this season.
Okay.
Got to take my kids there. The who's who, almost everybody who's still living that played at UCLA was there. It was
the Bannon brothers there.
Ed and Charles were there. It's interesting.
Those guys were serious.
Oh man, they're big time. I'll send you a couple pics with Ed and Charles that I took. I actually grew up with their younger cousins, so we're kind of from the same area. Great people, great family. But yeah, I've reaped the benefits of that journey and that resilience. I still reap the benefits to this day.
Yeah. But tell me, we do have young guests here, and I probably will, share this episode with some of my players for sure. But just to give them encouragement, because this is about encouragement. But encouragement's tough. Everybody think, I'll go speak at a commencement address this weekend. And when I speak at the commencement address, I'm challenging everybody. Go, look, if you want to stay encouraged, be encouraged. If you want to be an encouragement or an encourager, it is a challenge. And you had to stay encouraged despite all the ups and downs. So what do you think from your perspective? How did you keep fighting the good fight and pushing forward?
Yeah, that's an easy one. I was raised by a single mom, like I said, but I was also raised in church. So my faith is, I know that my faith is at the center of everything I do. And, everybody has their own deal. Everybody has their own journey. But for me, my faith has always been important to me and the foundation for everything that I've tried to do. Now, with that, I was blessed to have a single, strong mom who, looking back
I want to meet her. I mean, you seem great, but I want to get her on the podcast. She's probably fire. She's probably fire.
As Kevin Durant said, she's the real MVP. So, it's funny now, obviously as you go through life and you grow and you mature and you get wiser, there are a lot of things that you think about or consider. And for me, a lot of the things that I take for granted that she taught me aren't being taught, or these kids aren't necessarily.
What's one example of what she really taught you? And before you go, I want to tell you that I have guests on here that have no faith. They're atheists. They're not. I've guests on, but I bring up the questions of death and faith and purpose. So I'm glad you brought that up, because it's important that young people, as well as all people, know that faith was really the backbone in your life. And there's nothing wrong with that, to say that, to believe that, to know that. I just want to encourage you in that, Jason. The second thing is, what did your mom share? Like, what were these specific wisdom nuggets that people aren't being taught now that they really need to hear?
Yeah, I would say the two things, or the first, especially when it comes to, my situation, I forgot to throw in that I became a father at age 17 in this whole process. So
I almost became a father. That's how I got into God. Yeah. That'll wake you up real quick.
And so, with all that being said, from day one, my mom has always taught me that I can do anything that I set my mind to. And I think the flip side to it. So there's one thing to believe that I think, and we'll probably get into this a little bit later with the encouragement part. So yeah, she was encouraging. It was, hey, you can do anything you want to. And that sounds good. That's the Hallmark card that everybody wants to hear. But the reality is she followed it up with, if you're willing to do the work that it takes to get there. And that's what separates people. If from my experience as an athlete, from my experience as a coach, that's where it lies. And then the other thing, it was really simple, and I've adopted it in everything that I do. Like I could never use the word can't. Like that wasn't allowed in our house.
I love that.
And so, those are two that jump out. There were so many other. She was, the best coach I ever had, is what I'll say. And I've had some really good coaches. But for her to give me the things that she gave me to lay the foundation it was it was everything and more.
As you know, I mean, sure, by the statistics that over 50% of this nation doesn't have a consistent relationship with their biological father, right? And that's just like a great challenge in the American society. But I first want to encourage your mother. I meet these mothers, who are just like, I could never do what your mom. I mean, your mom.
Right.
That's why I say I want to meet her, because
Right.
I just, whether I get to meet her or not ever, I get to the Los Angeles area often. I speak in a lot of schools, but I want to tell you that what a gift these mothers are. And if there's a mother listening, and maybe you had a few bad breaks, but you've been consistent and persistent and resilient, I want to encourage you today, because mothers, man, they're heroes. I mean, they are holding our nation together. When people say women, people should be putting women on a pedestal, because there's so many. Of course, there's women that aren't that way, but there are so many great women out there. It's tremendous.
No, absolutely. And I was fortunate enough to coach, obviously I'm coaching men's basketball now, and have been for the last few years, but I was fortunate enough to coach women's basketball for 18 years at the Division I level.
You got a pretty good record there.
Yeah, well, we were okay. We had some success. And so, but the thing that I used to I tell people all the time that, first off, a group of women made me a man, from starting with my mom to my oldest daughter, forcing me to grow up a little bit. And then obviously my wife, and some of the strongest people I've ever been around in my life have been women. There's no doubt about it. And as being a coach, and hopefully whatever aspect or area people are in their life, understanding the impact they have on young people, coaching young women, I think has a special meaning and a special level of importance, just because, like you said, I wasn't aware of that fact, but I've seen it. I see it every single day. Women have been put in situations, no fault of their own, to be extremely strong, and like you said, carry our society and be the backbone, definitely, of our society. And that's a job. That's a job that is extremely tough. It requires toughness. It requires resilience. And like your podcast, it requires encouragement along the way.
Yeah, because encouragement's tough. I was on the phone last night with one of my players who plays. I got him an opportunity to play JUCO, and you know how JUCO is. Like, you coach JUCO, and so this is important for everybody. We're like kind of all like JUCO people, because we're all in situations. We're like, hey, is it gonna work out? Right. Is it not gonna work out? Right. Whether it's in business or whether it's in family relation, is this going to be the best thing? Hey, right now it's rocky, and people are in a lot of rocky situations. But I told my player last night, I said, look, man, I've given you an opportunity, because they know for all my players, I don't put my neck out I don't put myself on, because I'm not going to have my reputation on the line for you. Because everybody knows when I give them a player, they're going to be respectful. They're gonna listen. They're gonna follow through. You say, come off a screen. You're gonna come with some speed, man. You're gonna come with some speed off that screen. But anyway, I say like greasy, fast speed.
Yeah.
So, but I said, now it's on you, man. You're gonna either mess this up, or you're gonna have it be an opportunity to transform your life and be the man you were meant to be. So what would be the difference? You say work hard, right? You said, hey, look, any people can do anything. You can do anything. I can do anything. Anybody listening can do anything. What's that next step? What are from you, what you've seen with the young men and young women you've worked with? If you boil it down in 2 or 3, virtues or qualities, what would it be that really separates Like what are things as a college coach you're looking at going, man, I want to see this, this, and this?
Yeah, I'm really big on toughness. That's just probably because of my experience. Obviously, like I said, growing up where
Well,
I
being
grew up.
5'10", playing for UCLA, you bet you must have been. Woo!
You know what?
Thomas tough.
As a basketball player, I was just a guy who, at Irvine, I scored some points and did some things there. But going back to UCLA, I understood the history of the place. I understood who had been there before me. I understood that I was a small part of a huge puzzle, beautiful puzzle. And so I went in there. I was the guy who I dove on loose balls. I took charges. Coach never had to worry about me shooting too much or talking to him about shot, like none of that stuff. For me, it was just, what do I need to do in order to make us be better and help us be successful? And so I think it starts with toughness for me. We talk about it all the time. I'm extremely demanding as a coach. I'm extremely demanding.
What does toughness mean in your definition?
Yeah, toughness is real simple. Toughness is the ability to do it to the best of your ability, regardless of the circumstances. And I think that's the part where, you feel good. Anybody can be good when they feel good. The difference between being tough and not being tough is when you get hit. The Mike Tyson punch, everybody, or the Mike Tyson quote, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? Yeah. And so so quite simply for me, toughness is how you respond, being able to respond the right way every single time. You're on the road, bad calls, you're hurt, not injured, but you're hurt. Coach just yelled at you, you just had a bad play, all of those things. Can you respond the right way? That's toughness. And those are life lessons that go on for long after the basketball career is over. You wake up and most things in life, we don't control the action, but we always have control over the reaction. And so for me, that's huge when we're dealing with young people, when I'm talking to anybody. And so it starts with mental toughness. I think the other thing that has become a bad word in our society, and I don't understand why, and I think we've kind of lost our way in this way, is discipline. You have to be. I love that. Yeah, man, you have to be disciplined. I played with kind of a side note. I played with a guy named Jason Capono at UCLA.
Yeah, I remember. He could shoot. He could shoot.
He's the best shooter I've ever seen in person. Wow. And so he could really shoot it. But Jason and I had different body types. So we would hang out all the time and we'd go eat, and I'd be eating bacon cheeseburgers and fries, and Jason would be eating,
Yeah, I remember he was stocky, right?
He started off, but then, he understood what it took to get to where he was trying to go. And so he was eating salads and he was eating grilled chicken, and I would make fun of him. And he would always say, "Hey man, I can't eat like you're eating." And, and the ability for someone to step back and say, "Hey man, I can't do it that way. I need to do it this way." And then have the discipline to do it consistently. I think those two step up to the forefront. And then I would say the last thing is, if I throw in the third one, is people have to have a passion for whatever it is that they're doing. It can't be external, because at some point
there's got to be a why. There's got to be a why.
Yes, at some point you're going to get hit with challenge or adversity that truly makes you question why you want to do this. And in my experience as a coach, I wanted our players to get to a point where they question why they're doing what they're doing, because on the other side of that is where real breakthrough and greatness is. And so, like you said earlier, it's one thing to be encouraged, and that doesn't mean, in my eyes, you're just running around being Pollyanna and acting like everything is great, because it's not.
It's no tiptoeing the tulips, like my friend Danny Buck said. My friend Danny Buck
in the tulips. And so, you gotta roll up your sleeves, and as Ray Lewis would say, you gotta buckle that chin strap, and you got to get to work.
Yeah, so let's get to this discipline thing because I agree. Look, I think the greatest way you can encourage others and you can be encouraged is by having a plan and staying disciplined to that plan. So, all right, everybody, this is the question everybody wants to know. With you're dealing with, 18 to 22-year-old men, right?
Yeah.
Please talk to the how do they stay disciplined? And every person wants to know, how are you able to help them like buy into discipline? Is it tough to do that? Is it not so tough, or is it easy? How do you do this?
I think every young person is different. I would be lying to say it's easy to get anybody else to do anything.
Yeah.
Because we don't necessarily have control. I think I've been in different situations. A younger me as a coach, just brute personality. Like, you don't want to do it, I'm going to make you do it. But we're just we're gonna do burpees, or we're gonna run, or we're gonna do this, and but we're gonna do it the way that it needs to be done. And that worked to an extent. I think when I'm at my best as a coach, and I think when leaders are at their best as leaders, I call it love tough. It's Angela Duckworth talks about grit, obviously in her book, and basically, she really talks about tough love is kind of the best way to develop toughness and grit and discipline and all that stuff in people. I call it love tough because as I've gotten older and realized certain things, yes, you need to be tough on the people that you love, but the love has to come first, and they have to know it. And so once they know that you care, I think that they are much more willing to deal with the toughness of the situation. And so with me, trying to build relationships with our players and trying to get an understanding of where they're trying to go, I think just as important is understanding where they've been. If you can understand where they've been and where they're trying to go, I think it's your job as a leader or as a coach to create that bridge from where they've been to where they're trying to go. Now, again, with that being said, human nature is to take the easy way out. They're going to challenge it, every single day. I heard Doc Rivers say one time, you have to fight for your culture every single day. And I don't think that can be any more true when it comes to a sports setting or any leadership environment. And so for me, it's again, trying to get an understanding of the kid, clearly, to your point, clearly laying out what they're trying to do and where they're trying to go. It's interesting that you talked about journaling and writing. I've created a couple of journals that my team uses, and some other teams around the country that have had success, college sports teams.
What are the other teams that journal that have had success?
My wife's team, obviously, at Loyola Marymount, I had an N there. Duke softball, Clemson softball, Florida softball, Cal Baptist women's basketball, Oregon women's basketball, Penn State softball. So yeah, there's been, just off the top of my head, there's some schools.
So do the guys like it?
The guys, I think there's a little bit more leaning on my guys, just because, I mean, to be honest about the situation, they're probably, in our situation, they're probably at our place because of these soft skills that they haven't developed.
For sure.
And so they don't necessarily see the importance of it. And so we're I think that's part of the process, working through that, getting them to understand why this stuff is important and why it helps get them to where they're trying to go. It literally lays the roadmap. And then it puts them in a situation where they're self-accountable. It's you versus you. It's not about coach. It's not about mom. It's not about dad. It's not about anybody else. It's about what you said you were going to do versus what you're doing.
Yeah. And so what we do is we have with our older kids, the younger kids, I don't do this, the parents aren't ready for it, but we do a brotherhood retreat.
Okay.
where you take them away, kind of like Remember the Titans. Go, all right,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's more about just being real. So we have something called the real chair. You put the real chair out, and everybody gets to ask him questions. And we say, is he being real or is he holding back? And then if everybody says he's holding back, they have to stay in the real chair, So they're like, is he holding back? Coach is holding back. All right, well, they're saying, look, this isn't me. This is the team, man.
Exactly.
You have to be real. But it's interesting. What you're getting to is this. People want to stay disciplined when you're willing to hear and listen to the grit. If you want them to be gritty on the court, if you want them to do those extra things in your business, those extra things in your family life, you got to get gritty with them.
Yes.
You can't. That's what I hear you saying. You can't expect them. If you don't want to hear the reality of what's really going on, then don't be mad when they don't want to deal with your reality. And it wasn't like that when we were growing up. When we were growing up, it's like, just do it. And shut your mouth.
Right. So
there's some good things and bad things, but I think there's been, like, a lot of people say young people are bad. Like, I just see such goodness in that. Like, they want to, like, connect and have intimacy more than we did. Do you agree with that? That's like an encouragement for our young people.
Yeah, I think it's lacking because of, even going back to the number that you mentioned earlier about, fathers not being in the house. I think as much as they're connected with social media and the internet and literally having the world in the palm of their hands, they're connected, but those connections are real superficial.
Correct.
And they're real surface level. And so, I think I am not, yes, kids are different these days. Young people are different, but it's not their fault. They've been in certain situations or they've been allowed to do certain things. At the end of the day, it's the responsibilities of the adults, of the people who have more life experiences, who should be sharing those things and connecting with these kids to help them get to where they're trying to go. Or if you're a business leader, you have a company, it's connecting with your employees. One of the beauties of my journey as a coach is starting on the women's side and coaching there for 18 years. You quickly realize, and it's kind of a generalization, but it was something that I heard early on in my coaching career, and it became a reality. Is, for the most part, when you're leading a group of women, it doesn't matter what you know until they know that you actually care about them. And so starting there, it eliminates a lot of hurdles. And again, there were times or situations or players where I didn't do a good job of building that relationship, and maybe for reasons that were real and true. But I do know that the players who made the most growth, the players who had better experiences, regardless of where I've ever been, me as a player or coaching, it always comes down to relationships and showing the people around you, or that you've been given the charge to lead, that you truly care about them and their outcomes, not just the outcomes of your organization, team, or business.
So I guess, like, before I get to, like, what keeps you encouraged and getting that into the detail. So what's been your hardest, you don't have to give me names, of course, but what's been the hardest experience with a player that you've had, so you can help us understand what you deal with? And because we need to get to be an encouragement, you got to be raw and real. I love what you said, Jason. I love what you said, like, about, like, your team and how like you really see that it's so important for it not to be, like, superficial. You keep bringing that up, not to be superficial, not to be just about, like, 20, you're 20-1 or you're 10-9, because you'll get there if you really care deeply about them. But what's been one of the hardest situations you've ever been through, so people understand, man, this guy as a coach, it's not been easy to be able to lead these young men and women?
Yeah, I would say personally, again, as you said that, I mean, no one's ever asked me that question, so I'm kind of trying to run through 20 years of coaching in 20 seconds.
Give me your back. Come on, I'll give you a couple seconds. I'll fire it up for you and get lit. Because for me, as you're thinking, because I always tell people if they're introverts on the show, I'll start talking, give you time to think. So I'll give you a chance. For me, it was like I got jumped at practice one day, like literally.
Yeah.
Like a kid, 6'6", monster. Now
Yeah.
I'm shorter than you, man.
Yeah.
So I'm like, he jumps on top of me. Now I'm like, I watch sports movies, so I'm like, this is my chance to be Coach Carter,
Right.
So I flip him off and bam. And he's like, get your hands on. Who the F? I go, I'm not your teacher. I'm your basketball coach. Like it was that.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. He came back, but now the hardest part wasn't that moment. It was now he's on the streets now.
Yep.
And he's dealing. And like the hardest moment wasn't dealing with the back and forth. It was the aftermath that whenever I hear his name, hey, how's this kid doing? I kind of replay that in my heart and my sensitivity, and like it like breaks my heart because that kid, he's one of the best players in the area. And so like I don't know that's just where I'm at. How's it going? It's Justin Fatica, and I can tell you I'm so thankful for your encouraging messages and engagement and joining us for our videos that we hope are bringing you encouragement when you need it most. Now, before you go, I want to tell you about some exciting news. Since I was 19 years old, it's my dream to build facilities for kids. Well, that dream is happening. It's a place where young people and their families can relax, socialize, work out, be encouraged, that they can make a difference in somebody's life every day or have their lives be impacted. That's where we need you. We need you to ask yourself if you'd like to help us to break ground. You can be a part of this mission within less than 1 year. But if we don't have help, we can't do this. Now, I know right now there are a lot of people struggling, but we're just looking for pocket change, a rainy day fund, or to connect us with partners who can help make this dream a reality. We want every single kid and every single family to know they're amazing. And it starts with you. Please like, share, and subscribe to our content so we can keep you updated, so you can keep us going. And together, remember, we are making a lasting impact. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your support, and stay encouraged. And never forget, you were made for an amazing day, and it starts with what lives within you. You're amazing.
Yeah, man. It's there are so many times that things happen behind closed doors and I think it's the beauty of a team. I used to tell our teams all the time, it's the beauty of a team. Things happen behind closed doors that nobody understands unless you're in that room or unless you're wherever you are. And the ability to work through those things and get to the other side, or, again, respond the right way. I don't have an instance in mind. I don't necessarily have an instance in mind with an individual player.
For sure.
I think when you mentioned it earlier, we took over a program, my head coaching experience in college, we took over a program that had won, I think they had won 12 games in total, like the 3 or 4 years before we had gotten there. And it was just a bad situation as far as what needed to happen.
Culture, probably.
Yeah. Yep. And so I remember, I'm a 30-year-old. When I got hired, I was 30 years old. I was a Division I head coach at 30. And I'm thinking, top of the world. And the very first home game, I'm all excited. My first home game as a head coach, first official game. And we get thumped by like 30 or 40. And then we lose 10 more straight after that. So we started that my first season 0-11. And and everything that comes along with that, right? And it's a humbling experience, and but it tests your resolve. And I think The first game that we won, like, I just thanked the kids. Like, that's the one thing. You get kids from all different kind of backgrounds, and besides the military in our country, I think sports has the next best opportunity to bring people from all different kind of backgrounds into one thing, working toward one goal. And so, there's, I've coached young women. I had a young woman who was displaced because of Hurricane Katrina, and that started a cycle of adversity for her and her family. But she was someone who is extremely driven. She is an extremely tough young woman. She's in a doctorate program now, and is going to have a PhD. And like you said, it's not necessarily the thing that happens, good or bad. You kind of deal with that and you move on. It's as a coach, are we making, or as a leader, are we making the right decisions? And some people will never understand outside. Why is that kid? Why didn't you get rid of that kid? Or why did you keep that kid? Or why did you get rid of that kid? I think those have been some of my toughest decisions, is having to draw a line in the sand and say, as much as my mom instilled in me that I can do anything that I wanted to, and that we don't speak can't. So I'm in my own journey. People didn't give up on me, and it's tough sometimes. It's really tough sometimes to know the best decision for the group. And sometimes the best decision for that young person is for them to go do something else somewhere else. Or it might be doing the same thing, but they need a different voice. So, those would be the toughest moments that I can kind of think of off the head.
I love those, Jason. I love that you shared. Most coaches wouldn't share when 0-11 at a time. Most coaches. Most coaches wouldn't share that, hey, I had a kid at 17. Those are the moments that inspire your players, I bet, that you can share that and go, look, I'm here when rain comes, and I'm here when the sunshine comes. And then when the sunshine comes, you remember the rain. So guess what? You don't get caught up in that you're better than somebody. You don't blow out that team and go, coach is horrible. You've been there. And I think in life, just to stay encouraged, this is what I always tell people. You want to stay encouraged? How do you treat the grocery store attendant? Whatever job, like nurses, right? I wouldn't want, look, I like working with young people. I don't want to work with half dead people. You know what I mean? Like, nurses are my heroes, because I'm like, I don't want if I meet a nurse, I'm like, you're my hero, because I could never do that job. I think what's so important is to always listen and spend time and have the presence of mind to care for those people. You'd never want to be in the place they're in, and to really appreciate them and not judge them, but to see the good in them. And
absolutely.
And that's what I hear from you right now. And listeners, this is pearls of wisdom, because we're all going to be on our deathbeds one day, right, Jason?
Absolutely.
And we're all going to have times where nobody wants to visit us because we're not about what we're doing anymore.
Right.
There might be that daughter or son or wife, hopefully, right? But outside of that, everybody else is going to be like, who's that guy? He's not doing anything.
Right.
So encouragement comes with who you are. Who are you, Jason? Who are you? If I were to come up and say, who are you, Jason? What does that mean? Or if a player said, hey, I don't know who I am right now. Because a lot of listeners know, I know I get older people on this podcast. Yeah. Even them at 60 don't know. They're kind of struggling with who they are because they're done with business. They're retired. Or maybe they're young and they're trying to figure out who are you, Jason? Help a listener know how to, really understand who they are.
Yeah, man, I think that's a great question. I think it starts with what you do is definitely not who you are. It's two completely different things. And I think in today's society, or at least in our culture, we get so wrapped up in the status of what we do or who we or what we have, and comparing it to other people. Again, with social media, it's so easy to do that. You can easily lose who you are. I think part of this entire journey, especially being a coach, is trying to help young people find out who they are. And you know, definitely dealt with that throughout the years because especially in college, um, you've had kids who've played sports for so long that it becomes their identity. You ask them who they are. Oh, well, I play basketball. Okay, that's what you do. That's not who you are. And getting them to separate the two, understanding that if they do a good job of doing the work, and us as coaches or leaders do a good job of guiding them along that road to do the work. If we can improve who they are, what they do grows exponentially. It's not even a question. And so, for me, I'm a man of faith. I am a husband. I am a father. I think a lot of times our experiences mold us if we allow them to, or to the extent that we allow them to. And so I say that because of, my journey and where I've been and seeing um, things get made out of no way. Just my life experiences, seeing my life, my wife, uh, my mom, all of these things, how my life has come together, the pieces of the puzzle. And it wasn't because of anything that I did great. It was by the grace of God. And so that starts off who I am. Being a husband, my mom, again, going back to having a single mom, I saw what it was like for my mom not to have a man around. Um, I've we grow up, you see different men handle themselves in different ways. And I always thought that or wanted to be the man who put family first and was there every single day, loving his wife and loving his kids. That became really important to me because of my experience. And then obviously, like I said, not having a father around. The last thing that I want is my kids to go through life experiencing that. Not to say that it's ever perfect or any of that kind of stuff, because it's not. Going back to your point, it's about really rolling your sleeves up and going to work. Um, and I think the other thing is, if we go through this life only looking out for us, I think that our experience isn't going to be nearly as good as it is if we go out and we try to bless others every single day, whether it and starting in your own home, being a blessing to your wife, being a blessing to your kids, and that's, again, I'm really good at that on some days, and then there might be days where my wife is like, "You definitely was not a blessing to me
Go to practice. Go to
today."
practice. Just go to practice.
Right.
I get the same thing. What do you got something to do? You got something to do?
Yeah. Don't
No,
you?
but you bring
Yeah.
up some. I'm just marveling. I know maybe people don't talk. I just try to be as real as I can.
Yeah.
That's all I can do, because I believe encouragement is real. If you're not real, you can't encourage.
Right.
And I want to just thank you. If you watch the final scene of the first episode, it's not, uh, it's something that I think you'll be touched by, because I tell my players, I don't care. I've had kids that are playing D1. That's great. I've had kids that go to JUCO and then end up playing D2. But if I don't go to your home and meet your wife and your kids, then you let coach down.
Yep.
And I just want to thank you, because you have every excuse to say, "Hey, well, I didn't understand it. I screwed up. Oh, well, I, messed up when I was younger." Jason, you've had every excuse, but you haven't let your mom down.
No, I appreciate that. And that is extremely important to me, obviously, like I said, because of my experience. But you just hit something that's really important too. And I probably should have brought up during the toughness deal is, man, there you can find an excuse for anything to not to do anything.
Yep.
But I think part of the discipline and toughness is using that same thing that could be an excuse and use it as motivation. So, in my situation, I could say, oh, well, I didn't know what a husband looked like, or I didn't know what a father looks like because I didn't have the example, or I didn't. That's BS. At some point, you can do the work. There are other people around you that it looks. That's what it's supposed to look like. That's how you act. We make choices, and that's the power of. I think that's the power of life, that we actually have the choice in any given situation, to choose left or right. And I think for most adults, who are capable mentally, we know what's the difference between right from wrong. We know what we should be doing, and we make the choice on whether we want to do that or we want to do something else. And again, that kind of goes back to the discipline piece. So yes, you talking about making those choices, is very, very important.
Yeah, and talking about who you are, is your faith. Look, I'm like Planet Fitness. This is no judgment zone here.
Yeah.
It's not about judging, it's about loving.
Right.
It's not about comparing. I have a saying with my team, no comparing, and they're like,
Yep.
just loving.
Yep.
And I say, the more you give, and they go, the more you get. The more screens you set, the more
Yep.
jumpers you're gonna get. You
Yep.
think it's the opposite, but if you understand basketball, like you're going to be more open if you set more screens,
Right.
So, and I think, so how has your faith played a role in who you are? And why and then the other thing is to think about is like, why, I bring that question up to most guests, right? Not
Mhm.
all of them, but most, even if they don't have faith or they do have faith, because I'm just wondering, is it bad? Is it good? Why do you think that when I go, hey, your faith, all of a sudden things start going on in our culture? So the first question, how's faith shaped your life? And the second question is, like, why do you think it makes people so nervous?
Yeah, I think the first part is, as far as how it shapes my life, or has shaped my life. Um, man, I see why people who don't have faith, um, would struggle with the things that people in our society are struggling with. And I don't say that from a pretentious stance, like from a realistic deal. If all I had to believe in was me, I struggle because I'm not that guy. Like, I'm that guy in my mind, but I'm
Yeah.
not that guy. Meaning, I feel like I can do whatever I set my mind to and do all of that stuff. But there are things in life that we face that if it's just up to me and my abilities, I'm not good enough for that. Like, and I have no problem saying that. And so for me, with my faith and knowing that God has me on this road, um, and that road isn't always smooth, um but he has me on this road knowing what my end destination is, and me having faith in the journey and him guiding me through that journey. And even when it's a bad day, hey, it's a bad day for a reason. There's a purpose for the pain. um that gives me sanity and peace. Like, I joke with our players or different people. Like, I sleep well at night. Like, I don't toss and turn. I don't lose sleep over things. I learned at a really young age. And again, my mom kind of taught me, and we were in church. And now, growing up, we weren't in church every single Sunday, but I went to a Christian elementary school, and we were in church quite often. But I learned to, let go and let God pretty early, because again, I'm not that good. I think part of the reason that things have gone south, with faith is, it's become all or nothing with a lot of different things in our society and our culture, right? And so it's either you have to think exactly like me, or do exactly what I do, or exactly what I think, or you're the enemy. And you know, to be honest, if you're a true Christian, you know, the greatest two things you can do is love God and love others. And I might not agree with everything that you do. I might not agree with everything that you say. People definitely aren't going to agree with what I do or what I say all the time. Um, but that doesn't stop me from loving people. And I think we've lost that in our society just because it's us against them or it's me against you, and it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Regardless if we agree, regardless of what side of the political spectrum we're on, regardless of what our ethnicity is, regardless of what country we were born in, if we're true Christians, then loving God should be at the forefront of everything that we do. And if we're loving God, there's no way we can't love other people even when we disagree with them. And so I don't know if we've done if we've done a good enough example of exhibiting that love to all. Again, not necessarily agreeing. I love my wife. We disagree.
Of course.
I love my kids. We disagree. I love my mom. Me and moms disagreed a lot throughout the years. And so it doesn't mean that we agree, but it does mean that there's a certain level of respect and there's a certain level of love. And I think people have been hurt, like truly hurt by people who were supposed to be religious. And I think there's a big difference between being religious and being someone of faith. One is about a relationship and the other is about kind of checking boxes. And I think we have to get back I'm getting on my soapbox a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, because what you're saying is we have these sweatshirts we wear around. They say love no matter what, right?
Yep.
And it means no matter what.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
But I love what you said, Jason. I can disagree with you with 100 things, but that doesn't mean I don't love you.
Right.
That doesn't mean I'm not supposed to be patient and kind and generous with you and gentle and compassionate, have self-control and live out those fruits. And I think you're onto something. And I think it's like Jesus was on his deathbed because people didn't love him and he loved them no matter what. He could have been like, gotten his machine gun out and be like, we're taking you all down now.
Yeah.
You know, but he knew that wouldn't change the world. What would change the world is you disagree with me 1,000%. And I'm going to say, I forgive you.
Yep.
I forgive you. And that's what I just want you to know, because I'm about encouragement. Every person walks out. There's not one person that's walked off this episode not encouraged, because I have to live that. And if they walk off discouraged, I'm going to be like discouraged myself. But what encourages me about you and where I just see just such light is that you've forgiven. And I know that hasn't been like, now it's easier, right? And I'm sure there's other people it's not so easy, but I can sense that you have forgiven. And I think something that people disregard, the 2 reasons people go to psychologists, the 2 major reasons. Number 1, they didn't forgive somebody who did something horrible to them. That's the number 1 reason. The number 2 reason is they did something horrible and they're not dealing with it.
Got it.
Those are the top 2 reasons people go seek serious help.
Yeah.
So maybe you could explain to our listeners. I think it's important because forgiveness is encouragement. Don't you think, Jason?
Absolutely. And, I think it's going back to the faith piece. We can't receive something that we're not willing to give. Right. And so we're all sinners. We've all made mistakes. We've all done things. And, on Judgment Day, we're going to be asking for some forgiveness. And, we've already done that before then. And so, for us to ask for something that we're not willing to give ourselves, it doesn't sit well. And so, for me, I think the biggest thing growing up was obviously having to forgive my father. Was that a long process, or when do you think you really got that, and what was the evolution of that? I think when I was younger, I was resentful. I think as I got older, I kind of started I kind of started to understand. I think there was a point, and I don't know if there was an exact moment. There wasn't an aha moment
Yeah, for sure.
where I just had I just kind of released it, and it was what it was. I think if we're being honest about it, something like that is an ongoing deal, because there's certain things that, obviously with me being around and being active in my own kid's life, and my son in particular, just because obviously, I'm a male, and the father wasn't around.
Yeah.
There's certain things that probably happen, or experiences that I get to share with him, that I love sharing with him. And I could easily say, oh, well, I didn't get to experience this deal with my dad. And it's not. So I think that is an ongoing process. As a coach, as a leader, I think especially in today's climate, I was in a situation when I was a head coach where, I truly, in my heart of hearts, believe that regardless of how people take it or took it, I always had other people's interest in the forefront of my mind. And so, you know, I was forced out of a job as a head coach, and the people behind it were people in my mind who I had gone above and beyond to try to help, and somehow it went south. And so, I held on to that for a minute, because you take it personal, and
For sure.
it affects. Sometimes when you feel like things happen to you, they also affect the people around you. And I'm very protective of the people around me. And so I held on to that for a while. But even then, I've gotten to the point, going back to the faith piece, everybody, one of the sayings these days with young people, old people, oh, it was God's plan, God's plan. Which is interesting, because Drake took the loss in the battle with Kendrick a week ago. But God's plan, can't claim God's plan when things are going good. Like, the struggle is part of God's plan as well.
Sure.
And so what I had to, I just talked to somebody about this the other day. What I had to understand, embrace, and kind of come to grips with was, even those people who thought that they were doing something to hurt me was actually helping me, because it was part of God's plan. The things that have happened since the change, going to different places, having different experiences, being able to spend much more time with my own kids, they've all been blessings. And so those people actually helped me when they thought they were hurting me. And even if they thought they were hurting me, it helped me. So I had to let go of that and give forgiveness for that. Like, I'm at a point in my life where I don't hold resentment toward anybody. There's not anybody that I hate or dislike. If we've had good experiences together, I cherish them. If there were tough experiences together, hopefully it helped them become better. It definitely helped me become better. But yeah, I'm at a point in my life where I don't, to your point, man, I don't have time or energy to waste in that. I'm too busy trying to be the best version of me.
You're too busy to encourage. You're too busy encouraging.
Exactly, trying to encourage others.
No, but honestly, Jason, what you're saying two things. One, you're saying, hey, Jesus forgave me. It's hard to forgive without Jesus, because we were saying, without faith, how do you do these monumental things and get through that? And forgiveness, I think, is one of those things. I think people who are resentful people, it's because they might say they have a relationship with Christ, but if you have a relationship with Christ, you got to let go and let God. And what you're also saying is, when you know your mission, when you know that you're spending time with the plan of your life, resentfulness isn't a part of that time.
Right.
And if you're wasting time, what you're saying, Jason, is if anybody's listening right now and you're wasting time with resentment, then you probably aren't encouraged. and you're probably discouraged. And we want to encourage you today. Let go of that resentment today.
Yeah, you just hit it on the head. I just had a conversation with a former player, went to lunch last week. And it was actually a kid that I recruited. Things happened. I never coached her. Part of the conversation was, she mentioned how how she thought things would have been so much different for her if she had actually been able to play for me. And the converse, but to her credit, and she's a young woman, senior graduating from college. But to her credit, she quickly shifted to, and this is to your point. She said, but I really like who I am right now. And even the bad stuff or the adversity that I faced in the last couple of years have made me who I am. And so I can see the value in it, and I wouldn't change how things have gone. And so to your point, people that are out there holding on to things, I would encourage them. It starts with being really comfortable with who you are and loving who you are and the person that you are and are becoming. And once you do that, you understand that everything that has led to that point, the good, the bad, the ugly, has helped you get to where you are. I think that's monumental, like you said.
Yeah. And in closing, I was on the phone with one of our coworkers who works with me, who helps assist me. I was on the phone, and I said to her, I said, I hope I die and I'm in heaven and God lets me see my enemies that are there, like in heaven. And all of a sudden they're like, man, like, how'd I get to heaven? Like, I wasn't the best person. I didn't fall through on this. I didn't really have that much faith. And I'm just sitting there like this, going like, and Jesus looks at me and goes, well, that guy wanted you here.
Yeah.
So I listened to him because he's my friend, because I'm Jesus's friend.
Yeah.
And Jesus said, he's my friend. So since he's my friend, he wanted you in heaven. And I think that's my dream. My dream is there'll be 5 or 10 people that have hurt me, or maybe 100. And I got to be like Jesus. You know what I mean? I got to be like Christ. I fail at it. And I'm not good at it, like you said. Yeah. But that's what's on my heart of hearts. And so
that's a great way to look at it. I've never heard it that way, but that's a great way to look at it.
Jason, we got to hang out. I just want to let you know, I just love you. Honestly, you're a brother, man. You're really, we're not with each other physically, but I just want to say thank you for coming on Encouragement Conquers All, this podcast. And I hope the best for you.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me. And I wish absolutely nothing but the best for you, the podcast, and everything that you have going on.
Yeah. And if you get a chance, pray, that basketball team I coached, they challenged me because I'd always be like, what's your dream? Right? I'm like, what's your dream? And so one day we're doing a dream conversation. Yeah. And they're like, one of the cocky kids is like, hey, coach, you always ask us about your dream. What's one dream that didn't happen? They're like, some girl you want or something. I go, no, not some girl. They're always into girls, right? And I'm like, not the girls. I go, well, one dream that hasn't happened is I want to build your amazing sports complexes where they can learn that who you are is more important than what you do.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, coach, that's going to happen. Well, 6 months later, a lady said, we're going to start filming. And now this series, her whole goal is that this series will come out and the prototype for the gym is the team that people will see.
Nice.
And I just wanted to share that with you because you're somebody that is a believer in other people's dreams. And I want to thank you for doing that, for all the young people you've done that with. Even me, I sense that. And just keep it up, coach. And if I don't see you in person, I can't wait to see you in heaven.
Nah, I appreciate it. Same here, Justin.
All right, man. Stay strong.
All
this is Encouragement Conquers All podcast. We're with Jason Flowers, the head coach of Los Angeles City College, doing an unbelievable job, being an encouragement, defying all odds in his life. But guess what? Most importantly, he's done that for his mother and for his faith. It's not about what you do. It's about who you are. Go to YouTube. Go to all major platforms, Apple, Spotify. Check out this podcast. But most importantly, be who you are, which is a gift.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Encouragement Conquers All podcast with Justin Fatica. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this episode with someone who needs a little encouragement. For more uplifting content, follow us on our social media pages. See you in the next episode.